My best friend's husband lied about me having a crush on him. Now I've lost my fiancé, my best friend, and everything else. My best friend Sarah, 26F, and her husband Matt, 28M, have put me in an incredibly awkward position with my fiancé Jack, 30M. Matt and I grew up as neighbors, and while we were friendly, we weren't especially close. Sarah and I became best friends in college when we were roommates. When I introduced Sarah and Matt, they hit it off instantly and started dating. At first, I was thrilled to see two friends connect, but over time, I felt like the odd one out. They became so focused on each other that I often felt ignored or excluded. By the time I graduated, Matt had completely distanced himself from me, which hurt. Still, my friendship with Sarah remained strong, so I accepted it for what it was. Although Sarah and I continued to spend time together, my interactions with Matt were limited to polite greetings. On occasion, Sarah would suggest double dates with her and Matt, and me and my dates. During these outings, Matt's attitude toward me was noticeably rude and condescending. However, I chose to brush it off for Sarah's sake because he seemed like a loving and devoted husband to her. When Jack and I got engaged, we didn't plan on throwing an engagement party. Sarah was disappointed and took it upon herself to host a small celebration for us at her home. The party was lovely, but as the night wound down, things took a shocking turn. My fiancé and I approached Sarah and Matt to thank them before leaving, and Matt, who was clearly tipsy, hugged me out of nowhere. Then, in front of my fiancé, he made a jaw-dropping comment. He said he was relieved I was finally settling down and would now be over the crush I supposedly had on him. I was stunned and immediately denied it, but Matt just laughed and turned to Jack, claiming I had always been chasing him and he had to work hard to keep me away. I was mortified. I pulled Sarah aside and begged her to address the situation, but she brushed it off, saying, "Oh, he's drunk. Just ignore him," before adding, "You know I always trust you. I know you wouldn't act on your crush." Jack, however, was livid and walked out. I ran after him, trying to explain that what Matt said wasn't true, but Jack was too upset to listen. He said he didn't want to be anyone's second choice or backup plan. Since that night, he hasn't spoken to me or returned my calls. I've reached out to Sarah multiple times, pleading with her to clear things up with Jack, but she keeps dismissing it. I can't understand why she or Matt would even believe this, or why Sarah would stay close to me if she thought I had feelings for her husband. I've been there for her through so much. I was in her wedding party and took on the MOH duties when her sister was too busy. I've helped her through her pregnancy, babysat her child countless times, and done everything I could to support her family. If she really thought I had a thing for Matt, why would she want me involved in her life at all? I feel completely humiliated that they would accuse me of being infatuated with someone like Matt, who has never been anything but rude to me. Now I'm stuck trying to figure out how to convince Jack that none of this is true. At the same time, I'm angry at him for seemingly throwing away our relationship over a comment from a drunken man. I also don't know what to do about my friendship with Sarah. This whole situation has left me questioning everything. Update 1 day later. I talked to Sarah again and asked her why she thought I had a crush on Matt. She explained that when I first introduced them, I had talked Matt up and gushed about him, which she interpreted as me being into him. I clarified that while I was fond of him because I've known him for a long time, that didn't mean I wanted to be with him. She then mentioned that when they started dating, I often seemed upset about it. I explained that my frustration wasn't about them dating, it was about how she would make plans with me and then ditch me to be with him. When we were all together, I didn't enjoy being the third wheel while they ignored me. It wasn't about wanting him, it was about feeling left out by my best friend. I asked her why she hadn't said anything before, and she explained that she felt she could manage the situation. She admitted to asking Matt to stop talking to me completely and creating situations where there was little chance of us socializing with each other. I then asked her, now that I've explained I never had a crush on Matt, if she could talk to Jack and clear things up. She said she didn't want to lie. This was incredibly frustrating. She had no problem manipulating the situation for years based on a false assumption, but now refused to help my relationship by telling the truth to my fiancé. At that point, I told her I was done being her friend. Looking back, I realized I was always doing things for her, while she gave very little in return. Second update, 2 months later, I wrote Jack a heartfelt letter explaining everything about my history with Sarah and Matt, including the recent messages and screenshots. I assured him as best I could that I had never pined after anyone else and that he was always my choice. After days of silence, Jack finally agreed to meet and talk. He said he saw two possible ways to look at the situation. One, that Matt and Sarah might be right, and he didn't want to feel like a second choice. Two, that Matt and Sarah were intentionally causing problems, which reflected poorly on me for having someone like Sarah as a close friend. Either way, he felt it led to the same conclusion. He wanted to call off the engagement. He reminded me how I had always described Sarah as one of the most important people in my life, how I'd drop everything to help her. He even brought up the time I canceled plans with him to take care of her sick baby. While he had once thought it showed I was caring and kind, he now saw it differently. I begged him not to end things, but he said he needed a break. Over the next few days, I reflected on his words and realized he was right. I had been too dependent and overly accommodating. My friendship with Sarah was one-sided, and even with Jack, I often gave in too easily. I had agreed to timelines I wasn't ready for, like marriage and kids, and even turned down a higher-paying job with exciting travel opportunities because it didn't fit his preferences. I love him, but I see now that I need to grow stronger and prioritize myself. I returned his ring and ended things. I even gave back the gifts he had given me, which upset him, but I didn't feel right keeping them. They were generous and expensive, but they didn't feel appropriate anymore. As for Sarah, she stayed quiet for a while, but eventually started calling me. I ignored most of her calls, but this morning I answered. I told her about the breakup, hoping for some sympathy, but instead, she just wanted to know if I'd still watch her kid while she and Matt went on an overnight trip. When I said no, she got upset. That was the final straw. I've blocked her. I've lost my fiancé, my best friend, and my relationship with my nephew all at once. But even so, I'm grateful for the clarity and the advice that helped me realize this wasn't something I could fix.